So today, the Supreme Court essentially voted to divide America. This is, I believe, one of the first major fracture in the checks and balances and the federal system for the United States. Now, this is strictly my opinion. I'm just going to give you a breakdown. I am not an expert in any of this. I'm just an enthusiast of in geopolitics, political science, history, and so forth. So let me break down what happened today. So essentially, we used to have the same rights for big major issues nationwide, right? Example, birthright citizenship or civil rights issues and things of this sort. But now, if you think you had the same rights, whether you lived in California or Florida, now you have to think again. Because essentially, the Supreme Court ruled against nationwide injunctions that were being placed by judges. So, for example, when Trump was trying to push his Project 2025 agenda and eliminate birthright citizenship or pass crazy executive orders on, immigration or deportation or any number of things before you could put an injunction on, by judges. It was nationwide, and now the Supreme Court deemed that unconstitutional. So this is a major setback, and there's definitely a way for the executive branch now to leverage power, because they could essentially pass these shady laws or executive orders, and unless you sue on the state where you perceive that your rights are being trampled. Let's say someone's going through a similar dilemma in California, and this is happening to you in Florida, for example. Their rights are not protected, right? They're going to have to go in California and sue there, and get their due process there, if you will. But this undermines the whole checks and balances system, right? Because now remember, if you go to court and sue, you have to pay for all this as well, right? This is not free. You got to contract an attorney, you got to do all these things. And then you have to take in consideration where you live, right? Because now you could get a judge who, is more procedural instead of ethical, or a judge that, you have to take into account the judge's political leanings as well, their affiliations and how they interpret the law, or she interprets the law. So this is going to be a fiasco. This, to me, reminds me of like the Balkans. So this is like the Balkanization of the United States. So for those of you who don't know what I'm referencing, I encourage you to go read on the Balkans, because this is, again, these things don't happen overnight, right? When you have disintegrations of states or people seceding and things like that, or fracturing. Because again, here in the U.S. we have states with radically different cultures, idiosyncrasies, values, and so forth, right? But again, this gives enormous power to the executive branch of government and undermines the checks and balances systems that we had. And also, it turns the United States into, instead of, under one law, if you will, into 50 mini countries that are loosely patched up in a weird way now. So welcome to the divided states of America. Let me know what you guys think. Any different perspective out there, any different way of seeing it. Perhaps if there's an attorney out there who could call me out on something that I'm missing, or a nuance that perhaps I'm not taking into consideration. Again, I'm also not an attorney or a constitutional lawyer, but this is sort of a layman's interpretation of events today. So let me know what you think, guys.